Okay, welcome to the Grail of Truth Bible study that we're doing in this video, chapter 38 of Exodus. We're using the English Standard Version, and I have Sharon on the line with us as well. And if you want to participate in these Bible studies, just go ahead and like, subscribe, leave a note in the comments, and we'll let you know when the time of the live Bible study is, and you can join in and participate as well. So without further ado, let's start with Exodus chapter 38, verse 1. And, okay, so ESV Standard Version, it says, He made the altar of burnt offering of acacia wood. 5 cubits was its length, and 5 cubits its breadth. It was square, and 3 cubits was its height. So before I continue on here, we're continuing off with the construction of the parts of the temple, like the Ark of the Covenant, the table of the showbread, and so forth. So that's what's going on in this chapter. So continue with verse 2. He made horns for it on its 4 corners. Its horns were of one piece with it, and he overlaid it with bronze. And he made all the utensils of the altar, the pots, the shovels, the basins, the forks, and the fire pans. And he made all its utensils of bronze. And he made for the altar a grating, a network of bronze, under its ledge extending halfway down. He cast 4 rings on the 4 corners of the bronze grating as holders for the poles. He made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with bronze. And he put the poles through the rings on the sides of the altar to carry it with them. He made it hollow with boards. He made the basin of bronze and its stand of bronze from the mirrors of the ministering women who ministered in the entrance of the tent of meeting. And he made the court. For the south side, the hangings of the court were fine twined linen, 100 cubits, for 20 pillars, and their 20 bases. Their 20 pillars and their 20 bases were of bronze, but the hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver. And for the north side, there were hangings of 100 cubits. Their 20 pillars and their 20 bases were of bronze, and the hooks and the pillars and their fillets were of silver. And for the west side were hangings of 50 cubits. Their 10 pillars and their 10 bases, their hooks and their pillars and their fillets were of silver. And for the front in the east, 50 cubits. The hangings for the one side of the gate were 15 cubits, and their 3 pillars and their 3 bases. And so for the other side, on both sides of the gate of the court were hangings of 15 cubits with their 3 pillars and their 3 bases. All the hangings round the court were fine twined linen. And the bases for the pillars were of bronze, but the hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver. The overlaying of their capitals was also of silver, and all the pillars of the court were filleted with silver. And the screen of the court and the screen of the gate of the court was embroidered with needlework in blue and purple and scarlet yarns and fine twined linen. It was 20 cubits long and 5 cubits high in its breadth, corresponding to the hangings of the court. And their pillars were 4 in number. Their 4 bases were of bronze, their hooks of silver, and their overlaying and the overlaying of their capitals and their fillets of silver. And all the pegs of the tabernacle and for the court all were of bronze. These are the records of the tabernacle of the testimony, as they were recorded at the time as they were recorded at the commandment of Moses. The responsibility of the Levites under the direction of Ithamar, the son of Aaron the priest. Bezalel, the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, made all the Lord commanded Moses. And with him was Oholiab, the son of Ahisamach, and the tribe of Dan, an engraver and designer and embroiderer in blue and purple and scarlet yarns and fine twined linen. And all the gold that was used for the work in all the construction of the sanctuary, the gold from the offering was 29 talents and 730 shekels, by the shekel of the sanctuary. Okay, so we were just looking up, we paused the video for a second here, we were just looking up how much a talent weighs, and it's approximately 75 pounds of gold. So 29 talents is over a ton of gold, and then you add the shekels on top of that. So this is a lot of gold that they're talking about. But that was verse 24. So continuing on in verse 25, it says, the silver from those of the congregation who were recorded was 100 talents and 1,775 shekels by the shekel of the sanctuary. So let's see, 100 talents, and if a talent is about roughly 75 pounds, then we're at 750 pounds of, is that right? 750 pounds of silver? Oh, no, you're right. I'm sorry, 7,500 pounds of silver, plus the shekels. So that's like literally tons of silver and over a ton of gold. So there's a lot that went into this. Okay, so verse 26. A bekah, a head that is half a shekel by the shekel of the sanctuary, for everyone who is listed in the records from 20 years old and upward, for 6,550 men. Okay, so the 6,550 men, that doesn't include like the women, the children, the I think like the slaves and stuff they brought with them. So they estimate that like, you know, a couple million people came out of Egypt. So that's what we're talking about here. So verse 27, the 100 talents of silver were for the casting of the bases of the sanctuary and the bases of the veil, 100 bases for 100 talents, a talent a base. So each like a base is like, you know, like a pedestal or something they would put like the post into. So like you have these posts that kind of.
What did you say?
Oh, the base is for these posts. So so that they're basically 75 pounds of solid silver, and
for each base.
Yeah, and they would put the post in. That's what hold the post up. So.
Yep.
Okay, so verse 28 it says, and of the 1,775 shekels, he made hooks for the pillars and overlaid their capitals and made fillets for them. And then verse 29 it says, the bronze that was offered was 70 talents and 2,400 shekels. With it he made the bases of the entrance of the tent of meeting, the bronze altar and the bronze grating for it, and all the utensils of the altar, the bases around the court and the bases of the gate of the court, all the pegs for the tabernacle, and all the pegs around the court. So they put a lot into this thing when they built it. So what does your summary say about it?
Bezalel makes altar, a burnt offering, and utensils, lavar, courtyard curtains, and gate, tabernacle materials, and amounts listed of gold, silver, and bronze. Yep,
that sounds about right. So, hang on one second. I'm going to pause this 1 second. Okay, so I have on the screen a picture, a representation of the tabernacle in the wilderness. That's from Wikipedia, and so you have on it, you have the altar in front that they built, that they sacrificed the animals and so forth, and it's got 4 little horns sticking out that they use for like tying, you know, the roping the animal to and so forth. You've got like a basin for washing that they put water in, and then you've got the tent, and it has 2 parts. There's one room inside that has like the 7 branched golden candlestick, the menorah, if you will. It has the table of showbread, and it has the altar of incense, and then there's a big, thick curtain. And in the second room, which is called the Holy of Holies, that's where the Ark of the Covenant is. And inside the Ark of the Covenant, you have a jar of manna. You have Aaron's walking staff that grew buds miraculously, and then you have the tablets of the 10 Commandments. And then there's like this big curtain that runs around the whole outside of the whole thing. And then this picture I have doesn't show the front curtain. Let me see if I can find one that has the front. Hold on. Okay, so this is a pretty good image here. So the front door section it's like blue and scarlet and purple like twined linen, and then it has like pictures of like what do you call it, like cherubim or different like angelic beings that are like embroidered into the fabric. So like kind of like tapestry. It's like a picture sewn into it. And then you'd have the animals come into the front court where as you can see, the altar is located, and the washing laver for the priest to wash their hands in. That's where the sacrifices were performed. And that's the outer court. And then on the inside, again, you have the menorah candle stand, you have the table of the showbread, you have the altar of the incense, and then behind the curtain in the second room, you have the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant is, and that's the tent of meeting. That's where basically the presence of God would ascend into the temple, and then they would Moses and the priests and so forth, they would be able to commune with God and get information from Him. So that's kind of like where He would interact with the people of Israel through the leadership, through the Levitical priesthood, through Moses, etc. And they would do the sacrifices and the offerings and so forth for things like sins or different types of offerings in the outer court. And they would sprinkle the blood on the altar as a form of the sacrifice. The actual part of the sacrifice that mattered was not the death of the animal. It was the blood, the sprinkling of blood, that was the important part, the sprinkling on the altar. And that goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, because God said, if you eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. And so He cast Adam and Eve out of their presence, because if you come into the presence of God in a state of sin, He would have to fall through on His judgment, because He's not a liar. And so Adam and Eve would have to forfeit their lives. That's why no one can see the face of God and live. And so the offering of the blood, the sacrifice of the animals, was the animals were basically taking place of the wrath of God, but it's more so they're prophetically pointing to the sacrifice Christ would offer in the future, because God poured out that punishment that we deserve on Christ so that we can come back into the presence of God. So that's kind of what's going on in the tabernacle here, is they're giving animals as a foreshadow of the sacrifice of Christ, and that blood, that death of that animal in the blood, is what allows them to draw closer to the presence of God so that God can commune with them. But they can't go into the Holy of Holies. Only the high priest once a year could go into the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement and offer a sacrifice for all the sins of the nation on that one day a year. And that basically was like, whether or not they're going to be able to exist another year. I mean, that's how important that Day of Atonement was. It's called Yom Kippur, and it's still a Jewish holiday today. But that Day of Atonement is representing Christ dying on the cross, going into the holiest place in heaven before the presence of the Father, behind the veil that leads into heaven. And so that's kind of what this whole thing is somewhat representing. It's representing, in a way, steps to be able to approach and get close to God, and it involves like repentance and sacrifice and cleansing, like in the altar, where the basin where you wash your hands and so forth, and purification, so that you can come into the presence of God without basically suffering the punishment of our original sin. But the way we are able to come in the presence of God now is through the blood of Jesus, whereas in ancient times, all this was basically a foreshadow, a prophetic foreshadow of the ultimate sacrifice that Christ would do in the future to allow us to enter back into the presence of God and into heaven. So that's what this whole thing is basically all about. But it's a way that the people of Israel were able to communicate and commune with God, even though they were sinners and God was holy. How can the two meet? Because normally the holiness of God would cause them to be destroyed in their sin. So this is a way that they were able to communicate with God on a limited basis until the atoning sacrifice of Christ comes along that allows us to have a restored relationship with God. So that's what that's about. Do you have any questions on that?
No.
Okay. So that's a pretty good summary that you found for it. I'll go ahead and close out this video, and then we'll move on to the next chapter. Again, if anyone has any interest in participating in these Bible studies, you can go ahead and leave a comment, and we'll go ahead and include you, let you know when the time is that you can participate in the videos. And we look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks very much.